June 17th, 1944, 8:20 inches the morning. A field outside Caen, Normandy. Panzer Commander Kurt Meyer stood in the mud, staring at 3 destroyed Panther tanks. His boots crunched on spent shell casings. The smell of burned diesel and scorched metal filled his nose. Each tank had the same wound. A neat hole, about the size of a man's thumb, punched through the rear armor. Clean, precise, almost surgical. American. .50 caliber, his ordnance officer said, pointing at the damage. Machine gun fire from aircraft. Meyer laughed. Actually laughed. Machine guns? He shook his head. These are 42-gram bullets. Our armor is Krupp steel, 80 millimeters thick. He tapped the wrecked hull with his glove. This is impossible. The officer said nothing. He'd learned not to argue with commanders. Meyer walked around the nearest Panther. The entire crew had burned inside. You could see where they'd tried to escape. They hadn't made it. Mark these as rocket hits, Meyer told him. American P-47 seconds carry rockets. That's what did this. Sir, we found no rocket fragments. No blast patterns. Just nothing, Meyer cut him off. American aircraft are a nuisance, nothing more. They cannot threaten German armor with machine guns. He believed it. Why wouldn't he? German tanks dominated every battlefield. Panthers destroyed Shermans at 2,000 meters. Tigers were nearly invincible. The mathematics supported his confidence. Steel, this thick, couldn't be penetrated by bullets that small. It violated physics. But the burned tanks kept appearing. 1 here, 2 there. Always the same neat holes. Always from above. Always burning from the inside out. By June 20th, 3 days later, Meyer had lost an entire platoon, 12 tanks. Not to enemy tanks, not to artillery, to aircraft making strafing runs, 12 crews. Burned alive. The pilots would dive, fire for a few seconds, and climb away. Behind them, German armor would explode like matches touched to gasoline. Meyer stopped laughing. In Berlin, 800 kilometers away, High Command received the reports. Tank losses from air attack were climbing. Not bombs, not rockets, something else. Something they didn't understand. On June 22nd, they made a phone call. An urgent one. Oberst Heinrich Vogel, senior ordnance engineer, was given a new assignment. Find out what the Americans were using. Find out how they were killing German tanks with machine guns. Find out fast. Because the Panthers kept burning, and nobody knew why. 3 months earlier, March 1944, Wright Field, Ohio. While German engineers perfected their armor, American engineers were perfecting something else. A bullet. The Browning M2 machine gun was old, designed in 1921, 23 years on the battlefield. Most countries had moved on to newer weapons, but the Americans saw something different. They didn't need a new gun. They needed better ammunition. In a laboratory at Wright Field, a team of ordnance engineers held up a silver-tipped cartridge. It looked almost identical to standard .50 caliber ammunition. Same size, same shape, but heavier, and far more deadly. They called it the API round. Armor-piercing incendiary. Designation, M8. The engineering was brilliant, elegant, terrifying. Inside the copper jacket sat a hardened steel core, tungsten carbide tipped, harder than German armor plate. Behind that, a small charge of magnesium powder mixed with barium nitrate. At the base, a tracer element. 3 components working as one. Here's how it killed. The steel penetrator punched through armor at 2,800 feet per second. The impact created friction. Extreme friction. The metal-on-metal contact generated over 1,200 degrees Celsius instantly. That heat, combined with the impact shock, triggered the incendiary compound. The magnesium ignited. Temperature spiked to 2,700 degrees Celsius. Hot enough to melt steel. hot enough to ignite diesel fuel, which burns at just 315 degrees. The result? A thumb-sized hole that became a blowtorch inside a tank's engine compartment. By April, they were manufacturing millions of rounds. Standard loading doctrine. Every fifth round in the ammunition belt was API. The rest were regular ball ammunition. American P-47 Thunderbolts carried 8 50 caliber guns. Each gun held 425 rounds. That's 3,400 rounds total per aircraft. Mix in the API rounds, and you had 680 armor-piercing incendiary bullets ready to fire. Pilots were briefed on the new capability: target the thin armor, engine decks, turret tops, the places where German tanks were vulnerable. June 7th, 1944, one day after D-Day. Lieutenant Robert Johnson, of the 56th Fighter Group, made a strafing run near Carentan. His guns hammered a German column. He watched his tracers walk across a Panther tank. 2 seconds later, the Panther erupted in flames. Johnson stared. He'd just killed a tank. With a machine gun. "Command, this is Thunderbolt 27, he radioed. "Confirm tank kill. 50 cal only. No rockets, no bombs." There was a pause. "Say again, 27? I killed a tank with my guns." They didn't believe him. Not at first. But the wreckage told the truth. And word spread fast among Allied pilots. You could kill tanks now. German armor wasn't invincible anymore. The hunting season had opened. And German tank crews, men like Kurt Meyer, had no idea what was about to hit them. The Americans had figured out that you don't need a bigger gun. You just need a smarter bullet. July 10th, 1944. Berlin, Waffenamt headquarters. Oberst Heinrich Vogel read the assignment order twice. He'd been an ordnance engineer for 16 years. He'd analyzed every weapon the Allies used. But this order was different. Determine why American aircraft are destroying our armor. Not bombs, not rockets. The word aircraft told him everything and nothing. Vogel was 48 years old, methodical, skeptical. He'd served on the Eastern Front before his engineering expertise pulled him to Berlin. He understood the difference between battlefield panic and battlefield reality. He also had a son, Franz, 22 years old, Tiger tank commander somewhere in Normandy. This wasn't just an assignment, it was personal. July 12th. Vogel arrived in Normandy with a 3-man team: metallurgists, ballistics experts, field recovery specialists. Their first stop was a tank depot near Falaise. 27 destroyed Panzers sat in rows, Panthers mostly, a few Panzer IVs, 1 Tiger. Every single one had burned from the inside. Vogel walked among them slowly, notebook in hand, recording details. The holes were all similar, thumb-sized, punched through top armor, engine decks, turret roofs, the thinnest parts of each tank. He climbed onto a Panther, knelt beside the entry hole, ran his finger along the edges. The metal had peeled inward. High-velocity impact. The surrounding area showed heat discoloration, blue and orange streaks radiating outward. Something had punched through. And something had burned. Hot. Inside the hull, everything was scorched black. Rubber hoses melted, paint carbonized, metal warped from extreme heat. The crew's remains told a story Vogel didn't want to read. They'd tried to escape. They hadn't been fast enough. "Bring me survivors," Vogel ordered. "Anyone who escaped these attacks." July 14th. A field hospital. Vogel interviewed Unteroffizier Klaus Weber, Panther driver. 2nd-degree burns on his arms and face. "Tell me exactly what happened," Vogel said. Weber stared at the wall. His hands shook. "We heard the engines. American fighters. We tried to move to tree cover." He paused. Then, hammering, like someone beating the roof with metal rods. Very fast. Very loud. How many impacts? I don't know. 20? 30? It happened in seconds. Then what? Heat. Sudden heat from behind me. The engine compartment. Smoke came through the vents. Our commander screamed to bail out. Weber's voice dropped. "I made it," The others didn't. The ammunition cooked off maybe 30 seconds after the first hit. 30 seconds. From first impact to catastrophic explosion. Vogel thanked him and left. Back at the tank depot, recovery teams had collected something valuable. Spent ammunition. Hundreds of rounds scattered around the destroyed vehicles. Vogel's ballistics expert separated them on a table. Standard, 50 caliber ball ammunition, black-tipped armor-piercing rounds, red-tipped tracers. He held up a fourth type. And these. Silver tips. Every fifth cartridge had a silver tip. Vogel picked one up. Heavier than standard ammunition. He could feel it. 42.9 grams versus the normal 41.9. He shook it gently near his ear. Something shifted inside. Not just lead. Something more complex. X-ray these, he ordered. All of them. The X-ray images came back within hours. Vogel stared at the films. The internal structure wasn't simple. Multiple layers. Dense core. Less dense material behind it. Something at the base. This wasn't regular ammunition. This was engineered, purpose-built, designed for a specific effect. July 16th. The team returned to Berlin. 3 intact, silver-tipped rounds carefully packed. Armor plate samples. High-speed cameras. Chemical analysis equipment. Everything they needed to answer the question. Vogel sat in his laboratory that night. The silver-tipped round sat on his desk under a lamp. Such a small thing. 42 grams. Less than 2 ounces. But it was killing 45-ton tanks. He picked up a hacksaw. Time to find out how. July 18th, 1944. 6 a.m. Berlin Weapons Testing Facility. Vogel secured the silver-tipped round in a vise. 5 engineers stood around the workbench. Nobody spoke. He began cutting. The copper jacket came away first. Underneath, the steel penetrator gleamed. Vogel measured it. Hardness test. 68 on the Rockwell C scale. Harder than German tank armor, which rated 55 to 60. Already, this explained penetration. But not the fires. Behind the steel core sat a white powder compound. Compressed. Carefully packed. Vogel scraped a sample onto a glass slide. His chemist took it immediately. 20 minutes later, the chemist returned. Magnesium powder, barium nitrate, approximately 60 to 40 ratio. Vogel understood instantly. Magnesium burned at 2,700 degrees Celsius. Barium nitrate provided oxygen to sustain combustion even without air. Together, they created thermite-level heat. But the engineering was more sophisticated than simple incendiary material. The penetrator breaks through first, Vogel explained to his team. Friction from impact heats the metal. The shock triggers the incendiary compound. It ignites behind the penetrator as it enters the target. How hot? One engineer asked. Hot enough to ignite diesel fuel on contact. Diesel's flash point is 315 degrees. This burns at 2,700. The room went quiet. Test it, Vogel said. They moved to the firing range. A Panther tank's engine deck armor sat mounted at the proper angle, 16 millimeters thick, same as what protected real tanks. Distance, 500 meters, realistic combat range for strafing aircraft. Vogel loaded the API round into a test fixture that simulated aircraft gun velocity, 2,800 feet per second. Fire. The shot cracked across the range. The steel plate rang. A bright flash erupted on impact, white hot, blinding. When they examined the target, the hole was clean, 8 millimeters in diameter. The surrounding metal showed heat distortion, blue and orange discoloration, radiating 4 inches from the impact point. They measured the temperature with specialized equipment. Peak heat, 2,640 degrees Celsius. Duration, 0.9 seconds. Vogel placed a small container of diesel fuel behind the next plate. Fired again. The fuel ignited instantly. Flames shot 3 feet high. Mein Gott, someone whispered. Vogel ran the numbers. At 500 meters, These rounds penetrated 19 millimeters of armor plate. At 300 meters closer strafing range, they penetrated 23 millimeters. German tank armor thickness. Panther engine deck, 16 millimeters. Tiger, I-turret roof, 25 millimeters resistant, but engine deck, 25 millimeters, marginal. Panzer IV, top armor, 10-15 millimeters. All fuel tanks, 8-12 millimeters. Every German tank had vulnerable points, and American pilots had learned exactly where to aim. Vogel calculated the tactical mathematics. American P-47, 8 guns. Standard combat load, 3,400 rounds total. Every fifth round API. That's 680 armor-piercing incendiary bullets per aircraft. A 3-second burst fired approximately 240 rounds. 48 of those were API. Hit probability against tank-sized target from moving aircraft, 15 to 20%. Result, 7 to 10 API hits per strafing pass. Each hit could ignite fuel, ignite hydraulic fluid, ignite ammunition propellant. 1 hit was dangerous, 7 was catastrophic. The testing continued for 4 days. They fired 200 rounds, tested every angle, every range, every target material. The conclusion was undeniable. American API ammunition could penetrate every German tank's top armor. The incendiary effect guaranteed internal fires, and the fires spread faster than crews could escape. July 22nd. Vogel completed his preliminary report. 47 pages. Photographs, charts, ballistic data, chemical analysis. One conclusion. American. 50 caliber API ammunition represents a strategic threat to all German armored operations. He stared at that sentence for a long time before sending the report. His son commanded a Tiger tank, somewhere in Normandy, under skies filled with American fighters. Carrying these silver-tipped bullets, Vogel picked up the phone to request an emergency meeting with High Command. They needed to know, and they needed solutions, fast. July 25th, 1944, 6:30 inches the morning. Advanced landing ground. A-10, Normandy. Captain Robert Johnson walked across the dirt airstrip toward his P-47 Thunderbolt. The morning was clear, perfect flying weather, perfect hunting weather. 12 Thunderbolts sat ready, each one loaded with 3,400 rounds of mixed ammunition. Every fifth round tipped in silver. St. Lo sector, Johnson told his squadron during the briefing. Intelligence reports. German armor moving in daylight. They're desperate for supplies. We're going to make them regret it. 6 minutes later, they were airborne. Flight time, 18 minutes. Johnson led the formation at 8,000 feet. Below, the French countryside rolled past. Green hedgerows, small villages, roads cutting through farmland. Then he saw them. A German column, 14 tanks, half-tracks, supply trucks, moving slowly down a narrow road, caught in the open. Bandits, 2 o'clock low, Johnson called. I count 14 panzers. Let's go to work. He pushed the stick forward. The Thunderbolt dove. Speed built quickly. 350 miles per hour. 400. The wind screamed past the canopy. Johnson's target, the lead Panther tank. He could see the commander's hatch open. Someone was looking up, seeing him, realizing too late. 8. 50 caliber guns pointed ahead. Convergence point. 400 yards. Johnson's thumb found the trigger. The guns roared, all 8 at once. The sound was like tearing canvas, violent, overwhelming. Tracers arced down. Every fifth round glowed red. But between those tracers, invisible to the eye, silver-tipped rounds screamed toward the target at 2,800 feet per second. 3-second burst. 240 rounds. 48 API. Johnson watched them hit. The Panther's engine deck sparked. White flashes. 1, 2, 5, 8. Like camera flashes in rapid sequence. He pulled up hard. 5 Gs pressed him into his seat. As he climbed, he looked back. 2 seconds. Smoke poured from the Panther's engine grills. 4 seconds. Orange flames appeared, small at first. 6 seconds. The crew hatches flew open. Men scrambled out. 8 seconds. The entire tank was engulfed. Black smoke rose in a column. 10 seconds. The ammunition exploded. The turret lifted 3 feet and crashed back down. Splash, one Panther, Johnson radioed. Behind him, 11 more Thunderbolts dove on the column. What happened next wasn't a battle. It was a massacre. The Germans tried to scatter. Tanks turned off the road. Crews bailed out. Half-tracks raced for tree cover. It didn't matter. The Thunderbolts made 3 passes. Each pass lasted about 2 minutes. 8 minutes total of sustained attack. 11 tanks burning. 8 half-tracks destroyed. Supply trucks abandoned. Crews running through fields. American losses. 0 aircraft. Not even battle damage. Johnson's squadron climbed back to altitude and headed home. Behind them, black smoke pillars marked where German armor had died. On the ground, Unteroffizier Franz Weber crawled out of his Panther through the driver's hatch. His hands were shaking. His ears rang from the hammering impacts on the hull above his head. He'd heard the American engines. That distinctive sound. Every German tanker knew it. The sound meant death was diving toward you. The hammering had started. 30, maybe 40 impacts in 3 seconds. Like someone beating the roof with sledgehammers. Then heat, sudden, intense heat from behind him. The engine compartment. Smoke poured through the vents. His commander screamed, "Raus! Raus! Raus! Out! Get out! Now!" Weber grabbed the hatch handle. Twisted. Pushed. The hatch was hot. It burned his hands. He didn't care. He pulled himself through and dropped to the ground. Rolled away from the tank. Got to his feet. Ran. Behind him, his Panther, his home, for 8 months burned. 30 seconds after he got out, the ammunition cooked off. The explosion knocked him flat. He lay in the dirt, watching it burn. His crew hadn't made it. The gunner's hatch had jammed. The loader had been too slow. 2 men, friends, dead in less than a minute. Weber was captured 3 days later. During interrogation, he told Allied intelligence everything. "We called them Jabos," he said. "Jag bomber, fighter bombers. We feared them more than your Sherman tanks." "Why?" the interrogator asked. "Because we could fight Shermans. We could win against Shermans." Weber's voice dropped. "But we couldn't fight the sky. No armor was thick enough. No position was safe enough." Hearing those engines made us panic. What engines specifically? The American engines. The P-47 seconds. We knew what they carried. What did they carry? Weber looked at him like he was stupid. "Death," he said. "They carried death in machine gun bullets." The numbers told the story the soldiers lived. Week of July 17 to 24. Panzer Lehr Division started with 89 operational tanks. By July 24th, 34 operational. Losses: 12 tanks to ground combat, 43 to air attack. The 2nd Panzer Division, similar ratios. More tanks lost to aircraft than to enemy tanks. Overall, Normandy campaign, June through August 1,944. Germany lost 1,347 tanks total. Intelligence estimated 40 to 50% to air attack. That's between 540 and 670 tanks destroyed by aircraft. Most of those kills came from 50 caliber API ammunition, silver-tipped bullets that cost 12 cents each. German tank commanders faced an impossible choice. Move in daylight and die from the air. Stay hidden and get bypassed. Cut off. Surrounded. Supply convoys refused to move during daylight. Fuel trucks wouldn't risk the roads. Ammunition carriers stayed hidden until dark. The result? German tanks sat immobile, out of fuel, out of ammunition. Useless. One intercepted German radio transmission said it all. The Jabos own the daylight. We own nothing. American pilots started calling themselves tank busters. It became a preferred assignment. Aggressive pilots competed for kills. They'd return to base and paint tank symbols on their aircraft. Scoreboards. The hunters had become predators. The German armor, the pride of the Wehrmacht, had become prey. And it was all because of a bullet most people couldn't even see. A silver tip. 42 grams. 12 cents. Destroying 45-ton tanks worth $45,000 each. The mathematics was brutal and undeniable. August 3rd, 1944. Berlin. Oberst Vogel sealed his report. 47 pages. Photographs of burned tanks. Chemical analysis. Ballistic data. Field loss statistics. His conclusions sat on page 47 inches, bold type. American API ammunition represents a strategic threat to all German armored operations. Immediate countermeasures required. He knew what would happen when High Command read it. They'd demand solutions. He'd spent the last week trying to find them. August 5th. Ministry of Armaments. Emergency conference. The room filled with tank designers, field commanders, ministry officials. Everyone who mattered in German armor development. Vogel stood at the front with his charts and photographs. He explained the API round, how it worked, why it worked, the field results. General Guderian, Inspector General of Armored Troops, interrupted halfway through. Why was I not informed of this sooner? Silence. We didn't understand it ourselves until now, Vogel said carefully. The Americans kept it simple. It looks like regular ammunition, but it's not. Guderian stared at the photographs of burned tanks. His jaw tightened. Solutions, he said. Give me solutions. Vogel turned to his next chart. This was the part he'd been dreading. We've identified 6 possible countermeasures. None are ideal. He went through them one by one. Option 1. Thicker top armor. Add 10 to 15 millimeters to engine decks and turret roofs. The cost? 800 to 1,000. 200 kilograms of extra weight per tank. Reduced speed. Reduced mobility. Engines already strained would fail faster. Transmissions would break more often. Production time would increase 15 to 20%. And we don't have the production capacity, Vogel added, or the raw materials. Option 2. Extended Schürzen. Wire mesh or thin armor screens mounted above the tank to detonate API rounds before they reached main armor. Testing showed API penetrators punched straight through wire mesh. Solid screens blocked engine cooling. Tanks overheated, and it added more weight. Ineffective, Vogel said. Option 3. External fuel tanks. Remove internal fuel from the hull, mounted externally like aircraft drop tanks. This makes fuel more vulnerable, not less, a designer objected. And crews will refuse. The psychology of exposed fuel. I know, Vogel interrupted. It's not practical. Option 4. Automatic fire suppression systems. Halon gas systems in engine compartments. Halon production is insufficient for military needs, the ministry official said. And these API fires are too hot, too fast. Suppression won't work. Vogel nodded. He'd expected that. Option 5. Smoke generators. Constant smoke deployment during movement to obscure targeting. Reveals our position to ground forces, Guderian said immediately. And smoke doesn't work in open terrain or wind. Temporary measure only. Vogel saved the last option for the end. Option 6. Air superiority. Prevent American aircraft from operating freely. The room went quiet. Everyone knew the reality. The Luftwaffe was effectively defeated. Fuel shortages crippled operations. Allied aircraft outnumbered German fighters 20 to 1. Pilot training couldn't keep up with losses. The solution we need, Vogel said slowly, is the solution we cannot achieve. A commander from Normandy stood up. So what do we tell our tankers? Hide and pray? Vogel looked at his notes. Field expedient measures. Maximum use of camouflage. Night movement only when possible. Avoid open terrain. use tree cover and buildings. That's not a solution, the commander said. That's surrender of initiative. Yes, Vogel agreed. It is. The meeting lasted 3 more hours. They debated, argued, proposed variations and combinations. Nothing changed the fundamental problem. Germany was producing 300 to 400 tanks monthly, losing 200 to 250 monthly to air attack alone. Another 150 to 200 to ground combat. The mathematics was simple and devastating. We cannot sustain armored warfare at current loss rates, Vogel told them. The ministry official asked the question everyone was thinking. Does the Führer know? A summary report will be delivered tomorrow. Hitler's response came back within 48 hours. He rejected the analysis as defeatist, ordered continued emphasis on tank production, demanded improved anti-aircraft protection for tank units. He refused to acknowledge that air superiority was lost. In his personal diary that night, Vogel wrote, "He hears the words but does not listen. The facts offend him. So he denies them." Vogel thought about his son, Franz, Tiger Commander, somewhere in Normandy, under skies filled with P-47 seconds, carrying silver-tipped bullets. There was nothing he could do. No solution he could engineer. No armor thick enough. No tactic clever enough. The Americans had found the weakness, and they were exploiting it perfectly. German armor, the weapon that conquered Poland, France, and half of Russia, had been neutralized. Not by better tanks. Not by superior tactics. By a 12-cent bullet, and there was no defense against it. September 1944. The German armored doctrine, built over a decade, perfected through years of combat, collapsed. Not from defeat in battle. From fear of the sky. German tanks stopped moving during daylight. They hid under trees, camouflaged under netting, waited for darkness. The mobile warfare that had conquered Europe became static, defensive, reactive. The panzer arm had been defanged, not destroyed, but neutralized, made irrelevant by the simple fact that moving meant dying. American forces broke out of Normandy. They raced across France. German armor couldn't respond fast enough, couldn't mass for counterattacks, couldn't exploit breakthroughs, because the sky belonged to America, and America owned 12-cent bullets that killed tanks. The final numbers told a story commanders didn't want to read. Normandy Campaign, June through August, 1,000. 944, 1,347 German tanks lost. Between 540 and 670 destroyed by aircraft, most from 50 caliber API ammunition. The Americans fired approximately 50 million rounds of 50 caliber ammunition during that period. At 12 cents per API round, the cost to destroy a single German tank averaged $240 to $360 in ammunition. A German Panther cost $45,000 to produce. The efficiency ratio was 150 to 1. Think about that. $300 in bullets destroyed $45,000 in armor, and the Americans had unlimited ammunition. Germany had limited tanks. This wasn't just tactical superiority. It was economic warfare at its most brutal. The principle didn't die with World War II. It evolved. Modern attack helicopters carry 30mm chain guns firing depleted uranium API rounds. The A-10 Warthog's GAU-8 cannon fires armor-piercing incendiary rounds at 3,900 rounds per minute. Every modern military uses some variation of the API concept: penetration plus fire, chemistry plus metallurgy, simple physics applied with devastating effect. But the broader lesson goes beyond ammunition. The Germans built the best tanks in the world. Superior engineering, better armor, bigger guns. They optimized everything for ground combat. Frontal armor so thick that Allied tanks couldn't penetrate it. Their fatal assumption? Threats come horizontally. They armored for the battles they'd already fought. Tank versus tank, gun versus armor, the mathematics of penetration at level angles. The Americans attacked from above, where the armor was thin, where the fuel was exposed, where a thumb-sized hole became a death sentence. Oberst Vogel, the engineer who analyzed the API threat, survived the war. In 1945, Allied intelligence interviewed him. His words became part of the historical record. "We built the best tanks in the world," he told them, "but we armored them for yesterday's war. The Americans didn't defeat our tanks, they made them irrelevant." He paused, then added something that military analysts still quote today. "A 12-cent bullet accomplished what a $45,000 tank could not. That's not just innovation. That's understanding warfare at a level we failed to reach." Vogel's son, Franz, survived Normandy. His Tiger tank was knocked out by British forces in August. He spent the rest of the war in a POW camp. Lucky. Most of his unit died in burning tanks. The lesson echoes through every military conflict since. The greatest strength becomes the greatest weakness when your assumptions go unchallenged. Every defense is optimized for known threats. Enemies don't attack where you're strongest. They find where you're weakest and exploit it ruthlessly. Germany dominated armored warfare, but they neglected air defense. They assumed armor meant safety. They believed their engineering superiority was enough. The Americans proved them wrong with existing technology. A machine gun from 1921, improved ammunition, and the tactics to use them effectively. No new weapons, just better thinking. Today, military planners call it asymmetric warfare, finding the advantage your enemy doesn't expect, using old tools in new ways, combining existing technologies to create unexpected effects. In business, it's called disruption. Attack the weakness, not the strength. Make the competition's advantages irrelevant. In life, it's about questioning assumptions. The thing that kept you safe yesterday might be what kills you tomorrow. The silver-tipped bullet proved it. 42 grams of steel, magnesium, and barium nitrate. Smaller than your thumb, costs 12 cents. It changed armored warfare forever, made the world's best tanks obsolete, killed thousands of men who thought they were safe behind Krupp steel. And the Germans' brilliant engineers, superior manufacturers, confident commanders, never saw it coming, because they were looking in the wrong direction. That's the lesson. Not about bullets or tanks or World War II, about the danger of certainty, about the cost of assumptions, about what happens when you prepare perfectly for yesterday's threat and ignore tomorrow's. The Germans analyzed the .50 caliber ammunition. They understood exactly how it worked. They knew the chemistry, the metallurgy, the physics. What they found terrified them. What they couldn't stop destroyed them. And that silver tip, that simple innovation, it's still killing tanks today. Because the best lessons in warfare and in life never expire. They just wait for the next person arrogant enough to ignore them.